The New York Giants delivered another opening day clunker. We have the complete autopsy coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL, written in all lowercase letters, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win the game to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Train, a credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find my written work. And as always, a big welcome on in to my Blue Crew community members, to my newcomers, to my everydayers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And if you are watching on YouTube, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Also, make sure you click the little bell so that you're notified every time I post a video. And if you wouldn't mind, like the video. Although with this particular video, I don't know how much you're going to like with it. But before I get to that, I have a special message. I want to send a very special birthday greeting to a young man by the name of Pierce. I'm not going to give his last name to protect his privacy, but he knows who he is. It was his birthday over the weekend, and his dad, Eric, reached out to me, told me that he was a big fan of the show, and could I wish him a happy birthday? And I said, absolutely, always happy to do that for my listeners. So Pierce, if you're watching or listening, happy birthday. It's belated as I record this, but I hope you got the video that I recorded, that I set up with your dad. I hope you had a great weekend and you got lots of presents and, basically you were happy. At least until we saw the debacle that was the Giants, but don't let that spoil your birthday, my friend. All right. On today's Locked On Giants podcast, we're going to go through the autopsy of yet another disappointing blowout loss. This is 2 straight opening days where the Giants have been blown out. And if it's anything like it was last year, this is going to set the tone for the season, which I hope it's not going to. But we'll take a look at the total team loss. It wasn't just the offense. You can point to any number of things. So we're going to point to all the things that were responsible for the loss. We're going to talk about Daniel Jones. We're going to devote a separate segment to Daniel Jones because people, whether you want to admit it or not, Daniel Jones was part of the problem and a big part of the problem. We'll talk about that. And then finally, in segment 3, and I have some thoughts about this one as well, because once again, there were things that the Giants did and didn't do that had me wondering how it was going to play out once they got to the regular season. And we are going to talk about those because, some of these mistakes they made last year. And they made the same mistakes this year. And I don't know about you, but this is ridiculous now. I mean, learn your lesson from the year before and stop with the mistakes. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's get into segment 1. Let's talk about this total team loss. All right. Now, let's start with the offensive line. The offensive line, which, as you know, did not play a single snap together. The starting offensive line did not play a single snap together at all in the 3 preseason games. They had, I want to say, maybe about 20 to 30 snaps in practice leading up to this game, and it looked it. All right. There was pressure. Andrew Thomas in the locker room afterwards, who's usually pretty, even keeled, he said it best. He said it was a quote unquote poor performance. Hard to argue. I mean, the Giants allowed, there were actually 5 sacks, 12 quarterback hits. Now, not all of them on the offensive line. We're going to get to Daniel Jones in the next segment, but there was not room for the running backs. The passing game just wasn't there. Just not a good performance by the offensive line. All right. Defensively, did Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns show up? Did anybody see them in this game? Because look, other than for really, I think there was one quarterback hit that I think Thibodeau got. Burns got 4 tackles, and that was it. All right. Thibodeau was basically invisible. And this, we've been talking about this pass rush and how much better this pass rush was going to be. And we just didn't see it against this Vikings offensive line. All right. I mean, the only semblance of a pass rush came from Dexter Lawrence, who got the only sack on Sam Darnold of the day. So what's up with that? I mean, invisible. There's no other way to put it. I mean, the only other time we heard their name or number called is when Thibodeau committed that 15-yard penalty, the face mask penalty that extended a Vikings scoring drive, and they went down and they scored. Can't have that. All right. Drop passes. Unofficially, I counted 5. All right. Now, granted, some of those balls were not thrown on the money, but if they hit the receiver in the hand, they better bring it down. That's their job. 5 drop passes. You ain't going to win games if you're dropping passes. The secondary, the defensive secondary, which we all knew was going to be a problem, roasted by Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, people. Right? I mean, Deontay Banks, who's supposed to be the Giants' best cornerback, he was burnt by Justin Jefferson on 2 plays, the 44-yard big gain that they had, and then a 3-yard touchdown catch. Okay? I mean, look, we can't call Deontay Banks the number 1 cornerback until he starts playing up against, playing to the level of these number 1 receivers that he's going to be assigned to follow all game. All right, let's talk a little bit about the coaching philosophy. Now, we knew coming into this game that Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings, likes to blitz. He likes to run exotic blitzes. So the Giants countered with a strategy of primarily using a lot of 12 personnel, 13 personnel, basically their heavy packages. And I haven't seen the final snap counts as I record this, but I'm curious to see exactly how many snaps the tight ends played, because that's going to tell a lot. So they used this heavy personnel to basically force the Vikings to stay in their base defense. Okay, fine. But where were the downfield shots? I mean, at times the protection was decent. At times the receivers were getting open. And the Giants took maybe 1 downfield shot, I think, or completed 1 downfield shot of over 20 air yards. We saw this all spring and all summer, the deep downfield passing attack. And it was invisible in this game. And oh, by the way, did Jalen Hyatt play? I don't think he got any targets. I mean, you mean to tell me they couldn't find a way to get the ball to him? I don't get it. I really don't. And can we talk about the sloppiness of this game? All right. 9 penalties, 2 on 3rd down, which, as I mentioned before, the Vikings turned those into scoring drives. All right. 9 penalties. I think it was like 95 yards. Again, you ain't going to win if you're giving up penalty yards. Now, one of the defensive penalties called against the Giants, the one on Adoree Jackson, I don't know exactly what the official was looking at. Adoree was kind of upset about that one after the game, and to the point where he was speaking out against the officials, which means he's probably going to get a nice little fine later in the week. But still, the face mask, I mean, come on. And, I think half of the penalties, about 4 of the penalties that the Giants had occurred before the ball was snapped. Where's discipline? I mean, I'm at a loss here, guys. I'm at a loss here because, I saw this team all spring, all summer. And I don't know, maybe it's at a point now where the Giants defense looked, better against the offense because the offense maybe wasn't as good, or maybe vice versa. I don't know. But my gosh, if this is what the Giants are going to put on the field week after week after week, we're in for a long, long season. I mean, my gosh. I mean, I don't know what to tell you guys. 14 points thanks to the defensive penalties, the turnover. Can we talk about the turnover by Daniel Jones? That was a weird formation where they had it trips on one side, Wan'Dale Robinson on the outside of the trips, and everybody in the stadium knew that they were going to do a screen to Wan'Dale. I said it to Ed Valentine, who was sitting next to me. I said, "Oh, a screen's coming." And sure enough, a screen was coming. And I saw it. Andrew Van Ginkel, the linebacker for the Vikings, saw it, picked off the pass, jumped around, picked it off, pick six. I don't know what to say, guys. I really don't. I wish I had answers for you. I know a lot of you, sent in emails to me after the game or as the game was going on. You're frustrated. I'm frustrated. I I really don't know what to say, except I hope it gets better, but I don't know that it will. So, all right, coming up next, we're going to talk about Daniel Jones. Hey, Giant fans, Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections and watch your winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So go on and download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus as it's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We all have self-care non-negotiables in our lives, but sometimes life throws us curveballs with our schedules changing to where it becomes easy to let our priorities slip. But even when this happens, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. And if you're thinking about starting therapy, why not give BetterHelp a try? It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Fill out a questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if you find that your assigned therapist isn't a match, switch anytime for no additional charge. So don't skip therapy day. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. And folks, the new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, you get the madman Tyler Rowland, who kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. And then stop by the barbershop with my guy, Tony Wiggins, for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And also, folks, before I get into segment 2, I just want to remind you, we now have a new Locked On Giants Postcast, which is hosted by Jay Berman. And basically what that is after the game is done, Jay runs a live stream for about 20 to 30 minutes, instant reactions. You can chat with him, interact with him. You can check that out. I'll have the link for you in the show notes. That's available on YouTube. It's also, you can hear that on our audio platforms under the Locked On Giants podcast. So hope you would check that out. All right, let's get back to the autopsy here. And oh, what a terrible autopsy this has been. We got to talk about Daniel Jones. Now, look, folks, before I get into this, I want to make something perfectly clear. I don't have anything personal against Daniel Jones. I like the guy. I think he's nice. I think he's smart. I think he's a good person. I do not think he is a good quarterback. All right. I have seen far too much from him that makes me concerned. I have spoken to people about Daniel Jones and his shortcomings, and they all say the same thing, which is what I say to you here on this podcast. All right. Daniel Jones, you take away his first read and he's useless. Daniel Jones just, he's hardwired to try and make a play. And a lot of times he ends up getting himself into trouble or doing something stupid. That's what we saw today, folks. All right. So let's talk about some of the bad to come out of this play. All right. I mentioned before that the Giants had 5 sacks. I would say on at least 3 of them, Daniel Jones ran into them. All right. Had he been quicker with his decision making, maybe they don't have 5 sacks. Okay. They also, let's see, Daniel Jones, 22 of 42, 186. Look, Daniel had something interesting to say post game, and it got me wondering if maybe subconsciously he's still thinking about his knee. He said something to the effect of, I've got to get my balance back. Because there were some plays where he just looked off, he was off target, off balance and whatnot. And I wondered how he would react if somebody came at him, at his legs after having that knee injury. Now, Jones will sit there and tell you, oh, it's not a big deal. I'm not thinking about it. I'm thinking of making plays. But you know what? Looking good and doing it in practice when you've got the red jersey on and you're not going to get hit is a far cry from doing it in a game when you don't have the red jersey on and you can get hit. All right. And I just saw a hesitation in his game, indecisiveness, just bad decisions. He doesn't lead his receivers. Some of the balls that he threw were just, not very pretty looking. You got to wonder at this point, folks, and I hate to say it because, look, I want Daniel Jones to do well, believe it or not. He does well, the team does well. But you got to wonder at this point if he is damaged beyond repair. He just doesn't have a feel in the pocket. He doesn't have instincts. He just lacks so much. And he's been, he's taken a beating over his career, from playing behind bad offensive lines. It's almost like the David Carr situation from years back when David Carr was the first overall pick by the Texans. And he played behind, garbage offensive lines, and he ended up getting damaged. So, look, I know it's one game, folks. I get that. But Daniel Jones, this is a continuation of what we saw last year prior to his ACL injury, where last year he only had really one good half of football, that being against the Cardinals in week 2. Just so much, I think he's just damaged at this point. I really do. I mean, can they salvage him? And then, Dable, who said he's sticking with him, which I expected him to say, although, questions about confidence and stuff, Dable kind of ducked those questions. But look, the Giants are going to stick with him probably, for the next few games. I mean, as long as they're still alive in the playoffs, I suspect they stick with him. And I found it interesting, by the way, that they stuck with him in this game when the Giants were clearly out of it. Now, I guess it was because Drew Lock might not have been ready physically. Drew Lock was quarterback 2. Tommy DeVito was the emergency quarterback. So maybe that's why they stuck with Daniel. But I just don't get that Daniel has a feel for it. And, I wish he could find it because he's got the tools. He's got, the size, the arm strength, just take away his first read and he's useless. It's that simple. Everybody knows it. And it's unfortunate because it's going to drag the Giants down. It just is. And, watching him, watching it live, being able to see the all 22 live, and you just see it was amazing. I was calling out where he was throwing the ball before he threw it because I saw where he was locking onto. And if I'm seeing it, you don't think that the opponent's seeing it? So look, I don't mean to make this into a bash Daniel Jones segment, but let's call it the way it is. This guy, I hope Brian Dable has something up his sleeve to fix him, because right now I will go so far as to wonder if Daniel Jones is broken. So we'll see. Next week they get the Washington Commanders. Daniel Jones usually does well against the Commanders. It could be a get right game for him. Hopefully it is. But based on this game, it was just, not a good look. It was not promising. It was just ugly. Too much ugliness to make you sit there and say, "Oh my gosh, are we in for another long season with this Giants team?" All right, coming up next, preseason prep or decision making that this coaching staff made some decisions, and we're going to talk about them because I got some issues with them. I'll tell you what they are right after this. Hey, Giant fans. So, when I'm not covering the team, I like to go to live events, whether they're concerts, plays, or other sporting events. And with the GameTime app, I never have to worry about being shut out of any event that I want to attend. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite events even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the most incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. With GameTime, there are no hidden fees. You're going to know exactly what you're paying for before you check out. You'll get clear images of your seat views, and you'll also get event cancellation protection. And if you find tickets elsewhere in the same section and row for less, GameTime will give you 110% of the difference. So go on and get the tickets that you want. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and I'm so sorry, folks, that this has to be a downer show. I mean, the Giants just getting absolutely embarrassed at home in front of their legends. Their legends were back to kick off the team's 100th anniversary, and the Giants of today just absolutely embarrassing. There's no other way to put it. And I'm sorry the show has to be such a downer. Hopefully you're still sticking with me because I got some things about what the coaching staff has done and what they did all summer versus going into this game that I got to get off my chest. All right. Now, last year I made this point. I'm going to make this point again. I felt that last year the Giants did not get their starters enough work in the preseason. Brian Daboll's reasoning is, we have joint practices. We get them quality work. We don't have to play them in the preseason. Why risk them to get injured? This year, same situation. With very few exceptions, the starters did not get, in my opinion at any rate, enough work because the first week of the preseason, they played, they had the joint practice against the Detroit Lions. Then the second week, no joint practices, so the starters played against Texans for a half. Then the third week against the Jets, they had a joint practice against the Jets, so it was like, let's not play the starters. That's got to get fixed moving forward. If Brian Daboll and his staff are back next year, in my opinion, Daboll's got to get those starters more work because think about it. The last time the starters really had live game experience, remember, I say this all the time, live game experience is not the same as a controlled practice environment. Okay, the quarterback is in a red jersey that says, don't touch him. Okay, therefore, sometimes you see, a defender break into the backfield and with a sack, quote unquote sack, but the play continues anyhow. And to me, the Giants just did not get their starters enough work again in this preseason. In my opinion, they should have played them preseason 1, preseason 2, and then sat them for preseason 3. I don't understand the logic behind what Daboll did with that. I really don't. I know he's got his reasons, but they don't make sense to me. Okay, that's item number 1. Item number 2. Now, before the game kicked off, Gunnar Olszewski, the punt returner, was announced as being declared out because he had re-aggravated his groin injury. All right. Now, you knew that Gunnar Olszewski missed basically all of training camp and that he was gimpy as late as the start of last week, leading into this week's of preparation. You didn't have a backup plan for that? Your backup plan was Darius Slayton, who really didn't do the job. I mean, I can't remember the last time Darius Slayton fielded a punt in a game. So he goes out there, he fields a punt, and he muffs it. And thank goodness that Dane Belton was nearby and recovered it. Otherwise, that would have been another catastrophic event for the Giants. So, you've got this guy who's injured and you don't have a backup plan. Where's the logic there? I don't get that one either. All right. You worked on deep passing all summer, all spring long, and you don't get the ball to your playmakers, or at least attempt to get it to your playmakers, even on some of the shorter stuff. I mean, I get it that the Vikings were taking away some of the deeper stuff, but at least try to get the ball to these playmakers and let them pick up the yak. But here's the other thing that really, really, grinds my gears. There were players that were asked to do roles or not asked to do roles in this game that all summer long and all spring long before that, the opposite happened. For example, Cordell Flott was playing in the slot on some snaps. He played outside cornerback when healthy all summer long. I don't recall him playing in the slot at all during the summer. Isaiah Simmons, who worked with the first team defense, I don't think he got any defensive snaps in this game. Now, granted, they probably figured out that he is not a slot cornerback. So maybe it's like, okay, well, what role does this guy have? And oh, by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have a role for him. Maybe they look to trade him, because why carry the guy on the roster if you don't have a role for him? Jalen Hyatt, who was working primarily with the first team all of camp, I don't think he got any targets today. I mean, I want to say he got maybe 4 or 5 snaps in the first half that I can remember. What happened there? You can't find a way to get the ball to Jalen Hyatt? I mean, you were so locked in and trying to get the ball to Wan'Dale Robinson and Malik Neighbors, who, by the way, the Vikings were double covering Malik Neighbors. I don't get that one. Another one, Micah McFadden didn't play. All right. Now, McFadden, we know, had an injury, so maybe that's not as surprising. But your ILB2 was rookie Darius Mawaso, who, by the way, didn't play that badly. So, McFadden had been ramping up. I guess he wasn't ready to go, and they decided to put Darius Mawaso in there. I don't know that Darius Mawaso, I'm trying to think. I don't think he had a whole lot of snaps with the first team. Maybe towards the end of summer he started to pick up. But this just defies what they did during the summer. It's like, they practiced one way all summer long, and now, oh gosh, we better adjust leading up to the game. And it's almost the same situation as last year when they had with the offensive line, when they decided, oh, let's plug Joshua Ezeudu in at left tackle after Joshua Ezeudu didn't practice there all spring and all summer long. So I don't understand the logic here. I mean, you would think you'd want to get these guys ready. You want to get them coached up. And then you make these changes. I don't know, guys. I really don't. I wish I had an answer for you. But it's all connected at the end of the day. Some of these decision making, running Daniel Jones coming off the knee injury. I mean, you've got playmakers. Why not take advantage of them? You can't sit there and tell me that they weren't open all day, all game long, because I saw them open. So I don't know, guys. Just not a very good start to the season. I'd like to hope that it's going to get better. Look, as far as I'm concerned, I picked the Giants to beat the Vikings. Those of you who see my show last week, I picked the Giants to win. I will probably pick them to beat Washington, given their history. After that, I can't, unless they play a heck of a lot better, I can't see myself picking the Giants. I mean, they've got to show me that they're headed upwards. And right now, the arrow is pointing way down. And I'm sure ownership is not happy with what they saw. Who would be? Who would be happy with what they saw? So hopefully the Giants get their heads out of their you know what's and they get their act together. Brian Dable, the standard answer, we got to do better. We got to do better. Okay, enough saying we got to do better. We know you got to do better. What are you going to do to fix it? All right. People don't want to hear that. People who are paying money for tickets and parking and concessions and all, to get to these games, they don't want to hear that week after week after week. I get it. You don't want to throw guys under the bus, but how about being, a little bit more, I don't know, open? I don't know, guys. I really don't. Hopefully, though, with this autopsy now in the books and this off my chest, and hopefully this venting session helps you guys feel better. Hopefully better days are ahead for this Giant team because we all deserve it. We all do. So fingers crossed. That's going to do it for me today, Giant fans. Thank you so much for tuning in. And by the way, don't forget, if you haven't checked out Jay Berman on the Locked On Giants Postcast, it's online. I'll link it for you. It's if you're going to watch it on video. Otherwise, if you're going to hear it on audio, it's already in the audio library. You'll be able to hear that. Do check out Jay's Postcast. He does it after every single game while I'm doing my thing with writing and hunting down quotes and all that stuff. So thank you, Giant fans, for tuning in. Hopefully next week we'll have a better Monday to talk about. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow, everybody.